Chapter 1. The Ashes of Goodbye. Rain fell steadily the day they buried my mother. Not a heavy downpour, just a quiet, steady drizzle that seemed almost too appropriate. The kind of rain that doesn't wash anything clean, only makes the world heavier. I stood at the edge of her grave, my fingers clenched around the cold metal of the umbrella handle, my black dress clinging to my legs. The pastor's voice was muffled by the sound of falling water and the occasional gust of wind that rippled through the trees. I didn't cry. Not here. Not in front of all the people pretending they knew her. Beside me stood my stepfather, Mark. He didn't speak, didn't shift. Just stared at the polished mahogany casket, like it might suddenly open and she'd sit up and tell us this was all some cruel misunderstanding. His face was unreadable. I used to think I could read him so well, but not today. "She was beautiful," one of the neighbors whispered behind me. "Such a shame. Only 54. He always seemed happy with Mark. He was so devoted. I turned my head away. I didn't want to hear their voices. They hadn't seen the tension in her shoulders, or the way she flinched at loud noises near the end. They didn't see how often she cried when she thought no one was looking. When it was over, I let the others drift away before I moved. I waited until we were the last two left. "She didn't want to be buried here," I said quietly, still staring at the lowered casket. "She wanted the ocean." Mark's voice was rough. "I know. But her sister wanted a family plot. I didn't want to fight her on it." I looked at him. He looked older. Not just tired, aged. His dark suit was soaked at the shoulders. His hands were clenched at his sides. But his eyes, they weren't red. Had he even cried? "I'll stay a few days," I said, not really waiting for permission. "Help you go through her things." He nodded. "Of course. Stay as long as you like." We walked to his car in silence. My rental was parked behind it, but I didn't want to drive in this weather. The house was only 15 minutes away, but suddenly it felt like a world I wasn't ready to face. Inside the car, Mark turned the heat on high. I wrapped my arms around myself and stared out the window. Every road was familiar, every tree, every sign, but the world had changed. "She talked about you a lot," Mark said as we pulled onto the main road, "even when you were away. She was proud." I looked at him. "You mean, before she stopped calling me?" He flinched. Just barely, but it was there. "I don't know what happened," he said after a pause. "She was distant from everyone. I thought maybe she was sick, depressed maybe." I said nothing. I thought of the last voicemail she'd left me. Just a few words. "I'm sorry for everything. I love you." I never called her back. The house was darker than I remembered, still and cold. Dust had gathered on the bookshelves, and one of the hallway bulbs flickered with a faint buzzing sound. "She hated that light," I murmured. Mark gave a half smile. "I kept forgetting to fix it. She said it drove her mad." He told me you never listened." The smile faded. "That sounds about right." I went upstairs to the guest room I'd used when I visited during college. Everything was still in place, like I'd just stepped out for groceries and come back years later. My old perfume bottle sat unopened. My pillow still smelled faintly like lavender and home. I unpacked in silence. Outside the window, the rain slowed to a mist. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the weight of grief settle over me. Not loud or crushing, just hollow. A knock came at the door. "Yeah?" Mark stepped inside, holding a tray with 2 cups. "Tea. Figured it might help." I took one, our fingers brushing. His touch was warm, firm. Greetings. He hesitated at the door, like he wanted to say more. But then he just nodded and left. When the door closed, I stared at the tea in my hands. And then I looked at the photo on the dresser. Me, Mom, and Mark at my graduation. Her smile wide, his hand on her shoulder. We looked happy, but something in his eyes, even then, didn't match the moment. Something I hadn't noticed before. Chapter 2. Ghosts in the Hallways. The rain had stopped by morning, but the fog remained. It curled around the edges of the house like smoke, seeping into the corners and blurring the line between memory and reality. I woke to the creak of old floorboards outside my room. The sound of the past. I used to wake to the smell of coffee and my mother humming in the kitchen. But now the house was silent. No music, no clatter of breakfast pans, just the dull ache of emptiness. Downstairs, Mark was already up. He stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window like he was waiting for something. He didn't hear me come in. "You don't sleep much," I said quietly. He blinked and looked over his shoulder. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." I took a seat at the small table, the same one where I used to do homework while my mom cooked dinner. "You've always been up early." He poured me a cup of coffee without asking, black, just how I like it, still remembered. "I used to get up before her," he said. "She hated waking up to silence, but she loved rainy mornings." He nodded. "She'd sit on the porch with a blanket and a book, wouldn't say a word for an hour." There was a beat of silence between us. Not awkward, but heavy. "I can start in the attic today," I offered. "She kept boxes of old things up there, right?" "You never let me throw any of it out," he said with a soft chuckle. "Even receipts from when you were in middle school." I smiled despite myself. That sounds like her. I headed up to the attic after breakfast, pushing the trapdoor open and climbing the narrow steps. The air was thick with dust and the scent of aged paper. Sunlight slanted through the tiny window, catching in the haze like golden mist. Boxes lined the walls. Some marked Sophia School, others labeled photos, books, letters. I pulled out a few, sifting through years of forgotten things. Awards, birthday cards, a dried corsage from my prom night. My chest tightened. So much of this had been part of who I was. Then I found a small wooden box I didn't recognize, unlabeled, tucked behind an old trunk. Inside were letters, not to me, not even to Mark. They were to no one. Unsent, just journal mile entries. Maybe Dova touched me anymore. I think I've become a ghost in my own house. I hear them. The whispers. Am I paranoid? Or are they real? My stomach turned. The handwriting was my mother's. The last one made my skin prickle. "Sophia will come home eventually. I hope she knows I love her, even if she learns the truth." The truth? I heard a creak behind me and nearly jumped. Mark stood halfway up the attic stairs. One hand braced on the frame. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice low. I slid the lid back on the box. "Yeah, just a lot of memories." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the box. "She never let me come up here." "He was private?" She was scared. That word sat between us like ice. "Scared of what?" I asked. He shook his head. "I don't know, but toward the end she wasn't the same. Quiet, distant, like she was always looking over her shoulder." "Did you ask her?" "I tried," he said, voice rough. "She shut down, told me not to press." I swallowed hard. "Did she ever mention me?" Before, you know, Team talked about you all the time. Said she regretted pushing you away. Did she say why she did it? Mark hesitated. No, just that she didn't want you to see her that way. That way. Like what? Frightened? Weak? Broken? I didn't press. Not yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the hallways, barefoot, listening to the groan of old wood and the quiet hum of night. Every corner felt like it held a memory, or a secret. I paused outside my mother's old bedroom. The door was open, the bed made, everything in perfect order. But the room smelled like lavender and something else, something fate. Mark's door was just across the hall. Light spilled from beneath it. I knocked gently. Yeah. His voice was muffled. I pushed the door open. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing a t-shirt and old sweatpants, a book in his lap. You okay? He asked, standing. I couldn't sleep. He nodded, like he understood. Do you want to talk? I didn't answer. Just stepped into the room and sat down in the chair near the window. The silence stretched between us. This house feels different, I said finally, like she took something with her. Jean was the heart of it. I looked at him. The shadows caught on the lines in his face made his expression unreadable. His hair was a little longer than I remembered. He looked tired, but strong, solid. Mark, were you happy? I asked suddenly. With her? He looked at me. Really looked at me. His voice, when it came, was quiet. I loved her. But happiness? That's a complicated word. I nodded. Yeah, it is. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out into the night. We had good years. And we had years that were just survival. Did she know? I think she knew more than I gave her credit for. The silence wrapped around us again, but this time it was charged. I felt it in my skin, like static before a storm. His back was still to me, but I felt the weight of his presence, the line we hadn't crossed, but were approaching. Yeah. He turned, and for a moment, neither of us said a word. Then he spoke, his voice barely audible. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Sophia. I stood, heart pounding. Neither do I. We didn't touch. Not yet. But something in the air shifted. The world tilted a degree off-center. And we stood there, in the house of the dead, on the edge of something dangerous. Something we both knew we shouldn't want. But Chapter 3, His Grief, My Guilt. I avoided him all morning. I told myself I was just tired, that the attic had drained me. But the truth had teeth. I was afraid of what I felt, of what I saw in his eyes last night, of the part of me that didn't pull away. Mark stayed downstairs, working through bills and calls with lawyers about the estate. I stayed upstairs, sorting through more boxes, trying to keep my mind busy. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on his face. The way his voice cracked when he said he didn't know what he was doing. The way he hadn't moved when I stood so close. In the afternoon, I wandered into the garden. The rain had turned the earth soft beneath my shoes. The roses were still blooming, my mother's pride, but a few had wilted, left unattended too long. I crouched by the small patch and pulled away the dead petals. I wanted to cry, but nothing came, just a dull ache under my ribs. She loved those, came Mark's voice from behind me. I stood too quickly, brushing dirt from my knees. They're dying. He nodded. She'd be furious. We stood in silence. I turned to walk past him, but his hand caught my wrist gently. Sophia? I froze. Didn't mean to cross a line, he said. Last night, I didn't move. You didn't. His fingers tightened just slightly. But I wanted to. I looked up at him. The afternoon sun cast golden light through the trees, catching in his eyes, green and stormy. I remembered how he looked when he married my mother, strong, sure, calm, but now he looked undone. You're grieving, I whispered. He laughed softly. That's the excuse, isn't it? Grief. I pulled my wrist back. My skin tingled where he'd touched me. I don't know what this is, I said, or if it's even real. It feels real. That's the problem, I said, stepping back. I left him there, among the roses, and went inside. That night, I drank half a glass of wine and sat on the back porch, staring out into the woods behind the house. It was quiet, too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. I heard the door creak behind me and knew it was him before he said a word. You always did love the night, he said, settling beside me. It makes everything feel smaller, the world, my problems. You don't talk much about yourself anymore. I left this place for a reason. I know. I just wish I understood it. I glanced at him. You really don't? He looked straight ahead, jaw tightening. I thought you left because of her, he said finally. But maybe it was because of me. The words hung in the air like smoke. I don't know what I felt back then, I admitted. I was 18. Confused. You were the only one who listened. I remember the night you left, he said. She screamed at you. I came upstairs. You were crying. You held me, I whispered. He looked at me. I've never forgotten. We didn't speak after that. Not with words. But something passed between us. A silent understanding. A weight lifted, only to be replaced by something far more dangerous. Desire. I stood, too quickly again, my heart racing. I'm going to bed. He stood too, close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. He reached up, slowly, and brushed a curl behind my ear. Good night, Sophia. I turned and walked away before I did something I wouldn't be able to undo. But sleep never came. At 2 a.m, I wandered back downstairs to get water. The house was dark, shadows long and stretching. As I stepped into the kitchen, a cold breeze blew through the cracked window, and on the counter was a letter, an envelope, no name, just a message written on the front in tight, dark ink. You don't know the man you're letting in. I picked it up, heart racing. Inside was a folded sheet of paper with a single sentence. Ask him what happened to your mother the night before she died. My pulse thundered. My throat dried. I looked toward the stairs where his room was. Suddenly, nothing felt safe anymore. Not even him. Chapter 4. The Letter in the Dark. I didn't sleep. Again. I kept the letter tucked under my pillow, like it might whisper answers if I held it close enough. The words haunted me. You don't know the man you're letting in. I kept hearing my mother's voice in that sentence, though I knew it wasn't hers. She'd never written anything that blunt. Whoever wrote it, someone knew something, and they wanted me to know it too. But who? And why now? The house was too quiet when I woke, early morning sunlight slicing across the bedroom floor. I could hear Mark downstairs, his movements slow and deliberate, like a man pretending to live normally. I showered quickly, dressed, and stuffed the letter into my pocket before heading down. He was in the kitchen, frying eggs. He looked up as I walked in. "Morning." "Morning," I said, forcing my voice to sound casual. He was wearing a faded black t-shirt, his forearms dusted with flour from something he'd been kneading. Probably bread. He cooked when he couldn't sleep. My mother used to tease him for it. I sat at the table, watching him. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Not really. You?" He shook his head. "Too quiet in this house." I stared at him. Really stared. Did he love guilty? Or was I seeing shadows where none existed? He slid a plate in front of me, sat across from me, and started eating without a word. Finally, I asked, "Where were you the night before she died?" He looked up. The fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Well, do you ask?" "She called me that day," I said slowly. Left a voicemail. Said she was sorry. Sounded scared. Bert put his fork down. I came home late that night. She was already in bed. We didn't talk. I had just set up a garden pail to tell our plants to drop. I, the landscape, and the kids, the spring meat. "That's all?" He hesitated. "No, we had a fight earlier that afternoon." He sighed, rubbed his hands over his face. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." He looked at me then, and there was something raw in his eyes. "She accused me of cheating." My breath caught. "Where you?" I didn't answer. Silence. I pushed my plate away. My appetite had disappeared. Later, I went to town, claiming I needed fresh air. In truth, I needed distance. I stopped by the small corner store where the locals gathered, mostly gossip and groceries. I wandered through the aisles until I saw her, Mrs. Haley, my mother's old friend. She looked older now, her silver hair pinned up, eyes sharp behind thick glasses. "Sophia," she gasped, "I almost didn't recognize you." I hugged her. "Hi. I was so sorry to hear about your mother. We all were." "Thanks." She steadied me. "Are you staying long?" "A few days. Maybe more." Her eyes darted around the store. Then she leaned closer. "I'm surprised you went back to the house." "What do you mean?" Mrs. Haley lowered her voice. "You know, some people around here, they think your mother didn't just fall." I frowned. "What?" She straightened quickly, like she'd said too much. "Oh, nothing, just rumors, of course. People always talk." I grabbed her arm gently. "Mrs. Hay, please." She sighed. "Your mother came to see me a few days before she died. She was nervous. Said someone was watching her." "Someone?" She looked at me carefully. "She didn't say who, but she told me if anything happened, I should tell you to look through her books." "His books?" "She had a journal. Said she kept it hidden, and that it had everything." I rushed back to the house before the sun set. I didn't say a word to Mark when I got in, just went straight to her room and began tearing through her bookshelves. Dozens of titles. Some I remembered, some I didn't. I ran my fingers along the spines. Nothing. Then I noticed one book on the nightstand, Wuthering Heights, with a bookmark sticking out the top. Inside the book was a key, and beneath the mattress, duct taped to the frame, was a small, locked diary. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. The first page had a date from 2 months before her death. I'm scared. Mark isn't who I thought he was. The next entries got darker. I think he's hiding something from me. I found papers in his drawer. Bank statements I didn't recognize. Names I didn't know. He says I'm paranoid, but I can feel it in my gut. If I disappear, if I die, it won't be an accident. I snapped the journal shut, my heart pounding. She had known. She'd known something was coming. And she'd left the trail for me to follow. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't speak. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the journal. There was a knock at the door. "Yeah?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mark stepped inside. He was barefoot, hair tousled, wearing only gray sweats and a white undershirt. "You've been quiet today." "I've had a lot on my mind." He took a step closer. "Sophia? Is something wrong?" I stared at him. At the man who had raised me, loved my mother, comforted me after the funeral, and possibly betrayed us both. I wanted to yell, to accuse him, but I didn't have all the pieces yet, and if I pushed too hard, too fast, I'd lose any chance of knowing the truth. So I stood, slowly walked toward him, and I touched his chest. "No," I whispered, "nothing's wrong." His breath hitched. Our eyes locked. Then he leaned in and kissed me. Soft, searching, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed, and I let him, even as guilt twisted inside me, even as the journal burned cold against my back, hidden beneath the pillow, even as I started to fall into him, right into the arms of the man who might have killed my mother. Chapter 5. Kiss and Consequence. His lips were warm. It should have felt wrong, unforgivable, but it didn't. Mark kissed me like he had wanted to for years, slow, uncertain at first, then deeper, hungrier. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. The walls I had tried to rebuild came crashing down, with the press of his mouth against mine. His hand cupped my cheek, the other slipping around my waist, pulling me closer. The beat of his heart thundered against my chest. Or maybe that was mine. For one long, dangerous minute, nothing else existed. But then, the journal flashed in my mind again, my mother's words echoing like a siren. "If I disappear, if I die, it won't be an accident." I broke the kiss with a sharp breath and stepped back, trembling. Mark looked stunned, like he'd just surfaced from underwater. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "I shouldn't have—" "No," I interrupted, avoiding his eyes. "Don't apologize. I didn't know if I meant it." He took a cautious step forward. "Then, why did you pull away?" I couldn't tell him about the journal, not yet, not until I had more. "I just need time," I said. "Everything's confusing." He nodded slowly, but the hurt in his eyes didn't fade. "I'll give you space. I care about you, Sophia, more than I should." I said nothing. He lingered a moment longer before turning and walking out of the room, closing the door behind him. That night, sleep came in brief, restless flashes. I dreamt of my mother's voice, soft and scared. I dreamt of blood in the bathwater, of a hand pressing down on someone's head. I woke, tangled in sheets, gasping, my heart a jackhammer in my chest. I needed answers. I spent the morning going through her journal. Each entry painted a clearer picture of fear and suspicion. She mentioned strange phone calls, a man she thought was following her, and Mark's increasing distance. She didn't accuse him outright, but the implication was there. One page made me stop cold. I found receipts in his office drawer, payments made to someone named K. Daniels. Thousands. When I asked about them, he said it was business. But Mark doesn't have a business partner named Daniels. I looked into it. no one by that name in his company records. I think he's lying. I had to find those receipts. That afternoon, when Mark went out to pick up groceries, I crept into his office. The drawers were locked, but I knew where he kept the spare key, taped under the desk. Some habits never changed. Inside the bottom drawer were folders, tax returns, old pay stubs, and buried beneath them, bank statements and wire transfers. My heart stopped. There it was. The name, K. Daniels. Monthly payments for almost a year. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. The last one, dated just 3 days before my mother's death. I grabbed the folder, heart racing, and stuffed it into my bag. Then something else caught my eye. A photograph. Of me at 18, smiling in the garden. My mother had taken it. On the back, written in Mark's handwriting, he reminds me of someone I shouldn't miss. I dropped it like it burned. What the hell did that mean? He came home just as I zipped my bag shut. I forced a smile as he entered. "Hey," he said, setting the bags down. "Got your favorite coffee?" "That's sweet of you," I replied, voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "I was thinking," he stepped closer, "about last night." I froze. He brushed a knuckle down my arm. "We don't have to pretend anymore, Sophia." My breath caught. You feel it too, don't you?" His hand slid to my waist. I nodded slowly. "I do." But deep down, I wasn't sure if it was desire anymore, or just a slow descent into madness. That evening, I went into town again to the local library. I used the public computer to search for K. Daniels. There were too many results. None seemed linked to Mark, until I narrowed it down by state. And then I found it. Kenneth Daniels, private investigator, license suspended. My blood ran cold. Why was Mark paying a PI? Why did he stop paying right after my mother died? I called the number listed. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I left a message. Just a name. "Sophia? Please call me back. It's about Mark Grayson." When I got home, Mark was waiting on the porch. His eyes locked on me the moment I stepped out of the car. "Where were you?" My mouth went dry. "Just needed air. You're not answering your phone." I fumbled for a lie. "Battery died." He stepped toward me. "You've been different today." My fingers tightened around my keys. "I'm just tired." He reached out, brushing my hair behind my ear, like he'd done the first night. But this time, the touch felt possessive, heavy. "You can tell me anything," he whispered. I nodded, lips pressed tight. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That night, the call came. Kenneth Daniels. His voice was gravel. "Is this Sophia Grayson?" "Just Sophia," I replied. "You said it's about Mark?" "Yes, you did work for him?" "Long time ago. Haven't heard from him in a year. He paid well, but he didn't want me asking questions." "What was he investigating?" A long pause. "A woman. He didn't give a name, just pictures. A brunette, early 40s. Drove a silver Volvo." My heart dropped. "My mother?" "Could be. I think he suspected she was cheating or hiding something, asked me to follow her. And he was meeting someone? Regularly? A man? They never went into the same place together. Always met in public. Parks, coffee shops." My voice shook. Did he say what he wanted with the info? No, but he stopped paying after she died. Wouldn't take my calls. Seemed like he wanted it all to go away. I swallowed hard. Do you still have the photos? I do. Can I see them? A pause. Where are you? I gave him the name of a diner just outside town. I'll bring them tomorrow, he said. But be careful, Sophia. If Mark finds out you're digging. I know. He hung up, and I was left alone in the dark, clutching the phone, wondering if I'd just cracked open a door I wasn't ready to walk through. Chapter 6. The Photographs. The next morning I drove to the diner an hour early, hands shaking on the steering wheel the entire ride. The air was heavy with fog, as if even the sky wanted to obscure what I was about to uncover. Kenneth Daniels arrived late, worn jeans, a leather jacket, and eyes like chipped stone. He didn't smile as he slid into the booth. You alone? He asked. I nodded. He handed me an envelope, thick and sealed with a piece of old tape. Inside the photograph, my mother, sitting on a bench, looking around nervously, a man in a dark coat walking past her. Another photo, a coffee shop, she's at the window, the same man across from her, his face partially turned. I tried getting clearer shots, Kenneth said, but they were careful. He never touched her, never left with her. Did Mark see these? He nodded. Didn't say much, just paid me and told me to destroy them. But you didn't. Something felt off. I flipped to the last photo and froze. It wasn't the same man. It was Mark, sitting in a car, staring across the street, watching my mother. My head spun. You said you were tailing her, I whispered. I was. But this? I didn't take this one. Then who did? Daniels looked uneasy. It was in my mailbox, no return address, a warning maybe. I stared at the photo. Mark, watching her, possessive, cold. I thanked Daniels and left, heart thundering in my ears. Back at the house, Mark was in the garden, pruning hedges like nothing had changed. I slipped past him, went straight to his office, and pulled out my mother's journal again. There, on the last page, if anything happens to me, he did it. Please, Sophia, don't trust him. He says he loves you, but he loved me once too, and when I stopped being who he wanted, I became his enemy. Chapter 7. The Storm Inside. That night, I packed a bag, planned to leave after dinner. I made lasagna, his favorite. He noticed the effort. Special occasion? He asked, sipping wine. No, I said with a smile. Just felt like being close. He smiled back. It made me sick. Halfway through dinner, I asked, Mark, do you remember the day Mom died? He paused, fork in mid-air. Of course. Where were you that night? He tilted his head. Home, with her. She'd been acting paranoid, afraid. Did you think she was crazy? He hesitated. I thought she needed help, but she wouldn't let me in. Had she threatened to leave? Silence. He set his fork down. Why are you asking these questions, Sophia? I met his eyes. Because I found her journal, and the photos, and the payments to the investigator. His face darkened. You went through my things? She was scared of you, Mark. You knew about the affair. He stood slowly. What affair? The man she met in the park. His voice dropped to a whisper. There was no affair. I blinked. What? I hired Daniels because she was acting strange, but there was no other man. I followed her myself, Every meeting was her talking to herself. No one else ever showed up. She wasn't cheating. She was unraveling. That's not what the pictures show. I know what I saw, Sophia. She'd sit on benches for hours, smile at shadows, laugh at air. I thought maybe it was early dementia. But then she started accusing me of watching her, of drugging her. She locked herself in the bathroom and screamed at nothing. Well, didn't you tell me any of this? Because you were her daughter, you deserved a good memory. Tears pricked my eyes. He stepped closer. I didn't kill her. She took pills, dozens, left no note, just went to sleep. I shook my head. No, that's not what she wrote. James lied, Sophia, even to herself. Foster, I backed away. Then why did you keep paying Daniels? I wanted to know if she was meeting someone or if I was losing her to her own mind. My voice trembled. And what about me? He stopped. What about you? You said you love me. He moved slowly, the table between us now. I do. But did you ever really stop loving her? Pause. I don't know. He came closer. But I know I love you now. And I hated that I believed him. Chapter 8. After her funeral. I didn't leave that night. I should have. But something kept me tethered. Fear, curiosity, longing. Mar didn't touch me. He sat in the living room until I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke, a blanket was wrapped around me. The house was silent, but I could feel the storm breaking. 2 days later, the medical examiner's office called. I'd requested a copy of my mother's toxicology report, delayed due to a backlog, but now ready. And the result changed everything. There was no overdose, no pills, no drugs at all. My blood froze. I drove to the office, asked for the report, held it in shaking hands. Her death had been ruled natural causes due to a heart condition, but the report showed no evidence of heart failure. No aneurysm, no trauma, just inconclusive. And the kicker? The time of death didn't match Mark's story. She died between midnight and 2 a.m. But Mark told me they'd gone to bed at 11 and she'd passed in her sleep. Why lie? I drove home, nausea swirling. He was in the kitchen, humming. I walked in, report in hand. You said she died at night. Yes. Before midnight. He stiffened. That's what I remember. Sweating. His shoulders tensed. I stepped closer. What really happened, Mark? He turned to me, eyes unreadable. Do you really want to know? I swallowed. Yes. Silence. Then, finally, she told me she was leaving. That night, said she couldn't take it anymore, that she was tired of pretending to love me, tired of hiding. My chest ached and collapsed. From what? I don't know. She was screaming, panicking. Then she dropped. I didn't call an ambulance. Vilma? He looked at me, hollow. Because I didn't want them to revive her. I gasped. I just sat there, watching her, until she stopped. Tears streamed down my face. You let her die. He nodded. She wanted to go, he whispered, and I let her. I backed away, heart cracking open. He reached for me. But you're not her. I turned and ran. Epilogue. After the fall. And 6 months. I moved out that night. Told the police everything. But they couldn't prove foul play. No evidence. no confession. They let him go, but I changed my name, moved to another city, started therapy, started over. And yet, I still think of him. The man who let my mother die. The man who kissed me like I was his salvation. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder if I loved him, or just the illusion of safety he gave me. I'll never forget the things he did, but I can't forget how it felt when he touched me either. Even now, I hear his voice sometimes in my dreams. You're not her, you're the second chance. But I don't believe in second chances anymore. Only in survival and in silence. The end.